Hi. Yes, Jovi. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Can
ma'am.
you hear me? Okay. Shall we start? All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. I don't know what time is it where you're located, but welcome. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Alice. For those of you registered on the Trainovate learning, I'm the one sending you message from time to time. So it's nice seeing you guys and nice meeting you. And thank you. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. We hope that this time, this webinar will be helpful to you for those who will submit their risk assessment soon, and for those who are still planning, maybe you're still also planning just to join the training. We really hope that this time will be helpful for all of you. So today we are here to discuss about the IG2 risk assessment. So let's start. Let me share my screen first of all. Okay. So this webinar is focused on NEBOSH IG2 risk assessment. The outline for today will be first, we will have a quick review what is Unit IG2, and then we will be talking about the updated documents because actually that's the reason for this webinar. NEBOSH updated some of their documents, the documents that we will be using for this risk assessment. So we will be going through the documents, we will be discussing about what are the changes, and then as usual, we will have a Q&A session, and as much as possible, we want to spend more time on the Q&A session because the reason also for this webinar is we want to be able to address all your questions, guys, regarding this risk assessment. So I do hope you prepared your question, and I do hope you will get some answers today, if not all answers. Okay? So are you ready to start? Could you please give me a thumbs up if you're ready to start? Thumbs up. Okay. Okay, nice. We will really appreciate if you can open your cameras also, guys. We want to see some faces. On the e-learning, I do not see you every day. So this is the only chance I have to see you guys and to put some faces behind those names. So, okay, great. So let's get started. Okay, so quick review. What is Unit IG2? So this Unit IG2, we call it IG2 because of the new syllabus. Under the old syllabus, it's called IGC2. But once the old syllabus will not be used anymore, we will go back to the same name, IGC2. So even if you say IGC2 or IG2, it's still the same. Okay, so here the aim is to apply the knowledge and understanding that you gain from your study. Once you review NEBOSH IGC, you have those elements, and under Unit IG2, the assessment is by completing a risk assessment of your workplace and using forms provided by NEBOSH. So for this risk assessment, there are different steps, 4 steps in total. If you look at the form, it is divided in 4 parts. Part one, you have to describe the organization, and also you need to talk about the methodology you use to do the risk assessment. So here, you select the company that you will assess. So NEBOSH recommends. Okay, someone has got audio problem. Can you hear me, Jovi? Can you hear me clearly? Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So just let me know if there's any issue regarding my audio. So describe the organization and then talk about the methodology you use to do the risk assessment. When you describe basic information like what is the name of the company, where is it located, how many workers do you have, describe the activity or the business of the company, and then describe also the area that you will assess. For methodology, you talk about what sources of information you used, who did you talk to, how did you identify the hazard? How did you identify the controls? Things like that. Alright. So part two is a risk assessment itself. So this is a table where you apply the risk assessment that we studied under elementary in IG1. So you have to identify the hazard, who might be armed, the controls, including existing controls and additional controls, And also you need to provide a time scale for each action as long as responsible person. So it's some sort of, oh, wait, it's choppy.
Mine
How's my audio?
it's clear.
Jovi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. It's clear to me, ma'am.
It's clear to you. What about the others? Who else has got audio problem? Clear
I
on
don't
my
have
end.
any issue.
Okay, please give me some feedback on the chat box if you're good with the audio so that you can continue. Maybe I need to do some adjustment if most of you guys cannot hear me clearly. Audio is good, good. Okay, so good. Okay, so I see some positive feedback. Probably, guys, for those of you having audio problem, could it be the internet on your side? I don't know. Maybe you should move a little bit to another location. Okay, so let's continue. Let's continue. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, so risk assessment part two. This is the risk assessment table. You have to provide a sufficient number of hazard, which is 10 different hazard covering different categories, and you complete the risk assessment table. Um, what else? Under part three, this one, you have to select three actions from your risk assessment table. So you go back to your risk assessment table. Under the column additional controls, you need to select three actions, and then you need to justify. Why did you select those actions? Why do you think they are urgent? Why do you think they are high priority? In this part three, this is where you apply the knowledge you gain from element one. Uh, IGC1, when we talk about the moral, legal, and financial, this is the part when you need to use that. And for legal requirements, so you use moral to justify why you selected the action. You use financial reasons, you have legal reasons. And for legal reasons, NEBOSH says that you must use ILO, not the local laws in the countries where you are located. You need to refer to ILO, convention, recommendation, or codes of practices. And aside from that, you also need to consider the likelihood and severity of each action. And a third one, you also need to consider how effective the controls will be in reducing the risk. That's what you do under part three. And then finally, part four, this is to review, communicate, and check. So review means when are you going to review the risk assessment? Communicate who needs to know the risk assessment and how are you going to communicate it, and check is more about follow up. How are you going to follow up the actions mentioned on your risk assessment? Okay, so these are the four stages of the IG2 risk assessment. So we won't spend too much time on this one because again, the purpose of the webinar today is to address the new forms. And there are videos available on YouTube. Trainovate, Doc Wesam Atif made a lot of videos. You can refer to those again for those of you who are not yet familiar with all these steps. So there's a lot of documents, videos that you can check. But for us today, we will focus more on the new forms issued by NEBOSH. Okay, so before we talk about the forms, this is a very common question. People always ask about the hazard. How many hazard do I need to identify? What about the hazard category? What does that mean? So it's clear, at least 10 different hazards. And this should cover at least 5 different categories. So first of all, at least 10, but don't provide 20. Don't overdo it. I mean, you have some other things to do, so don't spend too much time providing 20 different hazards, and at the end of the day, you'll be submitting a book. It's not really reasonable. So 10, 12, 13, okay, but not 20. That's too much. Now, taken from at least 5 different categories. So what does that mean, categories? So NEBOSH gives us this table, and you can see it in the guidance provided by NEBOSH. I just took a screenshot. So these are, when they say category, these are the categories that they are referring to. So under element 5 to 11, you'll have several categories. So what you need to do is make sure that you cover at least 5 of those categories listed here. So at least 5 different categories. If you want to mention all of them, that's okay, as long as you have 5 different categories. Okay. Why is that so? Because NEBOSH wants to make sure that you can cover other things. I don't know, maybe you are a fire marshal in your company, you know everything about fire, and you will be talking about fire, but they want to check, can you also talk about other categories, but not just fire? So this is why we need to at least cover 5 different categories. Okay. So this table is, again, you can see it in the guidance provided by NEBOSH. And those documents have been sent to you already. If not, you can actually also check the documents on the NEBOSH website. Okay, so talking about documents, so these were the documents that were updated. So first we have the guidance, and then the example or the sample, risk assessment sample provided by NEBOSH, and then the form. So they made some changes on the form, so they reviewed the sample as well. And on the guidance, not so much changes, just few information. So where can you find the documents? This is very important. You have to read those documents before you actually start your risk assessment. So you can download it from the NEBOSH website. Just go to nebosh.org.uk, click on qualifications, then go to IGC. Then under resources, you'll have plenty of documents that will help you with your IGC review. So here, IG2 practical guidance, you'll have the guidance, different languages, and then you have the assessment pack that includes the sample or the example, and then the form. Whether you decide to use the electronic submission form or you decide to do it handwritten, you can just get the document here if it was not yet submitted or sent to you by your training provider. So you can actually check the documents on the website. Okay, so what are the changes? What are the changes? So what we will do is we will just go through the form, through each part of the form one by one. I will show you the old one, and I will show you the new one, and then I will also show you the sample, the updated sample from NEBOSH. So for clarification, first of all, for those of you who will submit your risk assessment soon, you do not actually need to switch to the new one. You can still submit your old risk assessment using the old form. You don't need to switch, not yet, but maybe in the future, of course, they will remove the old form and we will all use the new one. So the changes are actually not on the content. The content is exactly the same. The changes are more about how we're going to present the answer. Yun lang, how we're going to present the content. But the content is exactly the same. So do not worry. Okay, so what are the changes? So let's start with part one. So this is the old one. So what do we have under part one? Like I said, it is divided into two. Background, you talk about your company. What's the name of the organization, location, how many workers, and then describe the product, the services, the activities, and also describe the area that you will assess and any other relevant information. And by the way, for each section, they always mention this word count. So here it's 150 to 200. This is more for recommendation so that you will have an idea how long this section should be. But it's okay if you exceed or if you don't reach this one, it's not really a requirement. It's just a recommendation. Don't worry if you exceeded this word count or if you think it's too short. What's important is to cover all the information that they are looking for. So in the old format, it's like it's just kind of divided into section. It's you have to write some sort of paragraph. Now, what about the new one? The new one is like this. So instead of a big paragraph, they kind of divide it in several sections, and this is actually better and easier. In what way? Because here you can be sure that you won't miss anything. Because when you write a paragraph, there are cases where you forgot to mention the number of workers. But in this new one, if there's any blank space, then you will know that you forgot to put something. So here, the content is exactly the same. The only difference is how we're going to present your answer. Same thing, name of the organization, site location, number of workers, and so on. And then the other section, also the same thing. This is the methodology where you talk about sources of information you consulted, who did you talk to, how did you identify the hazard and the controls, and so on. So this is the new one. So how does it look like once you fill it up? So I just took a screen shot from the sample provided by NEBOSH. The sample, like I said, is available on NEBOSH website, so you can download it from that. So it looks like this once you fill it up. So just make sure you have the name of the company, And just a reminder, NEBOSH says that for confidentiality reason, if you don't want to disclose the name, that's okay. Just put ABC or XYZ or something. Site location, so this is more like a location. It's a sample, so here it's a made-up country, but make sure it's not a made-up country, it's a real country. In the Philippines, for example, you don't need to mention the entire block and lot and the complete address. Just mention location. Where is it in the world? Okay. Number of workers, and then description of the organization and description of area to be assessed. So just a quick reminder again, description of the organization is maybe you have a very large organization, maybe you're working in an offshore platform, so you describe that, but then other area to be assessed, description of the area to be assessed, maybe you cannot assess the entire offshore platform, you only focus on the accommodation, so that's the part we are talking about here. So describe the accommodation because that's the area that the risk assessment will cover. Okay. Um, Okay, so continuation. So this one is the completed part. When this is the methodology, how you completed the risk assessment. So here we will be talking about sources of information, who did you talk to, and so on. So I won't spend too much time on this one. You have the sample with you, so take a look at it. Okay, now part two. So part two we said is the risk assessment table. There are no changes actually. It's exactly the same. You have the hazard category and hazard, who might be harmed and how, what are you already doing or existing controls, and additional controls. Then you have the time scale, then you have the responsible person. So no changes for this one. So let's see a sample. So this one, again, from the sample provided by NEBOSH. So clear hazard category, that's hazardous substance. So that's our category. The hazard is the use of motor oil and fuel. So take note, it's very specific. Some people put chemical. Chemical is not specific. Yes, chemical is a hazardous substance, but which chemical? What are you talking about? So be specific. And then who might be harmed? Again, very specific mechanics. Don't just say workers, staff. Workers where? Office worker or where? So be specific. And then um, how? So here it is clearly said that those mechanics are handling the substance daily. And in addition, here we also include what will be the effect if they are handling the substance daily. What will happen to them? So under who might be harmed and how. So you need to talk about the effects. So here it's more on skin cancer, dermatitis, etc. And then what are you already doing? These are the existing controls. And then additional controls. Um, so under additional controls, you can see there's no audio. No audio again. Jovi, are we good?
I hear you, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So I'll continue. Okay, so additional controls. In this sample, it says see action 11, 14, and 15 against dust. Probably there are some actions that is also applicable under this hazardous substance. So instead of repeated, just mention the note. So that's okay. And we also have 5 additional actions. And take note, there are 5 additional actions. So there are 5 time scales, which means that each action should have a specific time scale. Same thing for responsible person. So if you have 5 actions, there should be specific time scale for each action and specific who will be the responsible person. You have to identify that for each actions. Okay. So what's important in the new guidance? This is what they mentioned. Something also important. Update. So ensure that all columns are completed with realistic information. If you have nothing to include, for example, under additional controls, put non-applicable or something similar. Do not leave the column blank. So if you think everything is okay, no additional controls required, put non-applicable. Non-applicable for timescale and non-applicable for responsible person. The point here is do not leave anything blank because if you do, you can fail. So I'll repeat that again. Do not leave anything blank. If you think that no additional controls are required, so it's non-applicable. If you think that there is no existing control, so non-applicable, nothing. Don't just leave it blank. So I hope this is clear, and I hope no one will make that mistake of leaving something blank, because again, you can fail if you do that, and it's going to be very sad if you fail just because you forgot to put that non-applicable. Okay, so that is something on the new guidance, something that they added. So it's clear now. So don't leave anything blank. Okay, so part three. So this is where you prioritize three actions and then you justify your selection. So under the new, the old form, it's just like a very, you have these sections and you have to mention everything here. So you select three actions and then you justify how you justify using moral, legal, financial, and then you also need to consider likelihood and severity, and you need to consider how effective the actions will be. So this is the old form. Now, the new one, it looks like this. So under the new form, they just made it easier and clearer. In what way? The content is still the same, but they divide it for the action. So what does that mean? So first, you have to still prioritize three actions and justify your selection. But justification must be done separately for each action. So, first, you have the moral and financial argument. This one you can combine. You don't need to do it separately for each action because it's going to be the same actually. When you talk about the moral reason, we talk about the legal reason, financial reason, there are some general reason that will be applicable for the three actions. So you can combine that here. But aside from that, justification like specific legal argument, you have to provide that for action one. Consideration of likelihood and severity and how effective the actions will be. You do that for action one, then you do that for action two, then you do that for action three. So this is again very good. Why? Because now we know exactly what we need to do, and they clearly provided sections. So if you miss anything, if you put any, if there's anything blank, it means that you forgot to put important information. So now, for each action, you have to provide specific legal argument. What does that mean, specific? So you need to go to ILO and look for a convention or recommendation or codes of practices that will be applicable to the actions that you just mentioned, and you mentioned that here. So we have three specific legal arguments because we have three specific actions. And also for the likelihood and severity, you have to do it separately for each action. Same thing for how effective the actions will be. So that's the difference between the old and new. So in the new one, it's really clear you have to do this separately for each action. So how does it look like? If you look at the sample, so this is the general moral, legal, and financial argument. So for moral, we know this. This is about the duty to protect workers. For financial, we talk about the cost. We understand that. For legal, we talk about what will be the impact or the consequences of non-compliance, like there will be claims, there will be fines, and prosecutions, and things like that. Now, the next section, this is the justification for action one. So what do? We write the action. What is the action? We provide specific legal argument for that action. We consider the likelihood and severity for that action. And same thing for how effective the actions will be in reducing the risk. And you have to do this how many times? Three times. So this is action number one. Then you look at action number two, and you have action number three. And again, you have to make sure you complete everything. There shouldn't be any blank space in this one because you must provide legal argument, likelihood and severity, and how effective the actions will be. It's always, you cannot provide any blank space in this. There is no non-applicable. If it's non-applicable, then select another action. Okay, so that's part three. Part four. So review, communicate, and check. This is the old form. Um, Nothing complicated, just review is when is the date of review and why did you select that date. Communicate is who needs to know the risk assessment and how will you communicate. And follow up is how we're going to follow up the actions mentioned in the risk assessment. Now, under the old form, it's the same thing again, same thing, nothing new. It's just the way you present the answer that is different. Okay, and so how does it look like? It will be something like this. If you look at the sample, so you have the review date so every 12 months, and then you explain why did you select this date. So the date is July 13. So you have to explain why you selected every 12 months. And then how will you communicate? So here you talk about who needs to know the risk assessment, and you can communicate it through toolbox or meeting or notice board or any other means of communication. And then follow up. How will you follow up the action? So nothing new for part four. It's not just part four. When it comes to the content, it's still the same content. Like we said, the only difference is how are you going to present the content. Okay, so couple of points also before we go through the Q&A session. Tutor support. So this is still the same thing. Nothing has changed. NEBOSH says that you should not submit draft of your work to your tutor. Why? Because pre-marking, pre-checking is not allowed. So your tutor may comment, may help you. You can ask whether you have the right location or things like that, but they cannot really comment on specific details. So you cannot send your risk assessment to your tutor in advance and asking the tutor, could you please check before I submit? The answer is no, it's not allowed. That's a malpractice. Okay, another thing, submission. This is also new. They say that submission must be in a PDF. I think we are doing this already, but they mentioned that again. When you submit your risk assessment not to NEBOSH, you submit it to your learning partner, learning provider, and it must be in a PDF format. And the result, still the same thing. They say the result will be issued within 50 working days after the date of submission to NEBOSH by the training provider. Okay, so actually that's it. So very short. Why? Because there are not much changes when it comes to the document. So we will now go through the Q&A session. Um, just like before, please type your questions in the chat box and we'll try to answer them. How much time do we have, Jovi? How much time left? We have till what time?
Hmm. Hi, Alice.
Hi, hi, Ma'am Margie. Hi, Ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, ma'am, we can we can extend up to 6 p.m. maybe if
Okay.
they still have questions. So
All
again, this
right.
is the time for them
Okay,
to.
before we go through the question, Mamaji, do you have anything? Well, they type their question. Do you have anything to share, announce?
Okay, just for the submission for the December 10. So I hope today is December 5. You still have 5 days to revise or to update or ask your question now so you can still edit and send us the final IG2 risk assessment report and send it to elearning@trainovate.com.ph and please demand for the acknowledgement just to make sure that we received your risk assessment. So good luck, guys. Please ask more question. Again, we encourage you to write now. I mean, right before this session, so you will be more, get the benefit of this webinar. So, any questions so far?
We're still waiting. For those who were not able to hear clearly, will this be available somewhere, ma'am? This webinar, so that they can watch again. I don't know.
Yes, ma'am. This will be
Mhm.
available in Trainovate YouTube channel. So
Mhm.
make sure that you subscribe or click subscribe in the Trainovate YouTube channel so you will still hear and watch the same this video. I mean this webinar.
Okay. Okay. So there's a question. So for retakers, we can still use the old form. Yes, retakers, you submitted the risk assessment before, and then you're going to retake. It depends. When are you going to submit? Because for those submitting this December, they can still use the old form. And
Yeah.
then past that, then you'll have to use the new one. Does that answer the question? So it depends. If you're submitting December, use the old one. And then next year, we will use the new one. Okay, naming the file. Do we have a format? Jovi, do we have a format that they need to follow when it comes to naming of the file when they submit?
Just name the file. Learner name and the learner number.
Okay, so learner name and learner number. So number, sorry. So put your
Yeah.
name and your number, student number, and PDF, PDF file. Okay, what else? Okay, so nothing specific, last name first, as long as you have the name and your student number. Okay, regarding
May I
time
ask a question?
scale, my control is to ensure inspection is conducted daily. Can I write daily in the time scale? Yes, yes. For those actions that will be repeated, such as an inspection, then you can put a frequency instead. Daily, weekly, monthly. That's okay. How much information or details that we need to state on the 2, 3, 4 columns, especially for the existing controls and additional controls, whether 3 and 4 is enough. So the question here is for the existing controls. So how many controls do I need? 3 and 4, is it enough? Actually, it depends. It depends on the hazard. It depends on the problem. It depends on what is existing
What
already.
other control?
If you have no existing control, then you may need more additional controls. If you have enough existing control already, you may just need only one. So it depends, depending on the hazard, how 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 important, how serious it is, and then depending on what is existing. If you have no existing control, you need more additional control. If you have plenty of existing controls already, you may need less additional control. So there is no number, it depends. As long as the controls that you are providing will be enough to reduce the risk. So that's important point. Make sure the controls that you have as a whole will be enough to reduce the risk, and also consider the hierarchy of control. Okay. Yes. What standard should be used as a reference for recommendation? Which one? Recommendation for what? Okay. For the risk assessment, you can use any standard you want. I'm talking about the risk assessment table. If you want to think about what controls am I going to use, I'm going to refer to OSHA standard, or UK standard, or any standard. That's fine. But when we talk about part three, when you justify your answer using legal argument, you have to use ILO recommendation, ILO convention. So under part two, you can use different standard you want, but under part three, when you justify the three actions selected, you must use ILO. Okay, what else? Okay, ILO or HSC UK. Okay. Again, any standard for part 2, part 3, ILO. Okay, do we need to cite the reference for the standard use? You'll have to mention that. Remember in part 1, we talk about the methodology. This is the sources of information. So mention under part 1, methodology, what are the sources of information you use? And under sources of information, you will have to list down what OSHA standard or what standard did you use to identify the control. So any documents that you check in order for you to identify the control, include that in the methodology when we talk about the sources of information. Okay, in part one, methodology. They are already providing us everything that we need to include under that section. Why? Because they said sources of information. Sources of information means you need to list down documents or standard that you used in order for you to identify controls. For example, if you have something related to radiation, did you check any documents for you to be able to understand more what are the controls for radiation? To mention that maybe there's a standard for radiation in the country where you're located. So mention the standard. So that's one, sources of information. So mention the sources of information. Next, who did you talk to when you identify the hazard? Remember in element 3, IGC1, we talk about when you do a risk assessment, you have to identify hazard. And when you identify hazard, one of the way you can do it is through inspection, or maybe you consult, you talk to people doing the job. So under methodology, you need then to mention who did you talk to. So you have to say something like, I went to site and I talked to the people doing the job. I talked to the supervisor. No? Methodology to identify the hazard. Who did you talk to? And then here again, we say that one way you can identify the hazard also is looking at history, like accident record or near misses, some sort of statistics in your company. So that's also part of the methodology. So when you identify the hazard, when you identify the control, you look at sources of information, you talk to people, you look at record, what record, accident, and things like that. So if you don't know what to say under methodology, just look at that table. You know, the form they already mentioned. This is the information that must be included. So just follow that and use that. And also, if you really don't understand, look at the sample provided by NEBOSH. Look at the sample and see how did they do it, and try to not copy paste it, but try to do the same thing. But don't copy paste. If you do that, that's a malpractice and you'll fail. Okay, so what else? Let me go back a little bit to some other questions. Okay, so format version 1. Whether we can change the format or answer on the document, especially with the font type or size. Yeah, it's the format, the old form. It's a Word format, I think. Yes, it's a Word format. You can change the font. You can answer on it directly. You can type on it. Font size, make sure it's something clear. They don't really require. There's nothing specific, but make sure it's a font that can be easily read. Because you have to also to help the assessor a little bit. Assessors, maybe they are stressed already. They have 20 papers to check, so you have to make sure that your paper is something that is easy to read, because maybe it can affect their mood. So no specific font, but make sure it's something that is clear, easy to read. And the form, the old form, yes, you can type it, you can change it. Make sure you just provide all the informations required. Yeah, occupation safety law is different from country. Can I apply my own country laws for answer? Yes, that is correct, except under part 3. Under part 3, the legal requirement, the specific legal requirement must be ILO. Why ILO? Because like you said, different country has got different regulations. So just to make it uniform, NEBOSH says, let's all use ILO. That is under part 3. When you use legal to justify the action, ILO. You can mention your country's law as an addition, but that won't be marked. It's okay even if you don't do that. So don't do it. It's not required. So only ILO. Okay, what else? Mm, for example, if we are supply to other company, what company should I choose, our company or the other one which I work? Because our services are different to our client, but the area we'll choose are the client area. So Mark, just use your workplace. I don't understand. It's like you have a company and then I don't understand the question, but the point, you have to select the workplace, whether you're going to use your workplace or the other workplace. I think what's important is use something that you understand. Because you'll have to describe the activity, you have to describe number of workers, you have to mention the name of the company, uh, business or product and services. So which one do you know more, your company or the other company? That would be the answer. And for the area that you will spec, it's again up to you. Don't make sure you have sufficient number of hazards. You can limit to a small part of your entire organization as long as you have the sufficient number of hazards. So Mark, I don't know if that answers your question, but let me know if it's not clear. So my advice, Mark, is just use the one that you know most, because you'll have to provide information like number of workers and locations and things like that. Okay, what else? Okay, yeah, not bold on the word old format. Okay. IGC1 allowed just 1 day for test. IGC2 has a bunch of days from now to deadline. When is the deadline for submitting answer? Yeah, yes, Kim, that's how the exam is set up. For IGC1, it's only 1 day. For GC2, you have plenty of days, as long as you don't exceed the submission. So submission deadline, once again, Jovi,
10 months.
December
10.
10. So Kim, that's December 10. Is there any specific time before midnight?
Till midnight, ma'am.
Midnight. So December 10 for IGC2. For responsible person, can you write safety officer? Because some of the responsibility belongs to us. Yes, that's okay. But not the entire risk assessment. It's all safety officer. Do not give 40 additional controls, all the safety officer. That is not really reasonable because we understand what we are trying to what we discuss in this training is safety. There are different responsibility. There's responsibility for managers. Everyone has got some responsibilities. And we say that top management commitment is important. So safety officer, you can do that, but not everything is safety officer. Make it balanced. Okay, so for, wait, there's another question. Just a moment, please. I'm trying to scroll down. Okay, time limit for making risk assessment. There is no time limit. They recommend 3 hours. It's just a recommendation. They said you can complete it within 3 hours if you do it just continuously. But it's just a recommendation. It's up to you. So there is no time limit as long as you submit on time. Part 1, can I use construction and commissioning of gas separation plant? Yeah, you can use that. No problem. But it's quite large. Why not just construction or gas separation plant? Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. So you are going to use the activity. It's under construction, but it's also under commissioning, and it's a gas separation plant. Okay, no issue. So there is no issue in the type of workplace that you're going to select. The issue is never on the workplace or the area that you selected. The issue is on the hazard. Did you cover enough number of hazard and hazard category? That's the issue. Okay, only PDF. No, you cannot submit in MS Word. It has to be PDF. If you don't know how to convert, inform Jovi. She can help you, right, Jovi? Okay. So no MS Word, PDF format only. Can we fill out the answer sheet? Our on firm status. There's no example answer or fixed answer, right? Sorry for same question. Yeah, there is no example answer or fixed answer. The one provided was just a sample for information. But it's your workplace. You have your own hazard. You need your own control. So yes. What the assessor will be looking for here is do you have the hazard and the controls that you are provided? Are they enough to reduce the risk? Basically, is your risk assessment suitable and sufficient? That's what they are looking for, suitable and sufficient risk assessment. Can you use project manager as responsible person? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's okay. And again, don't be lazy. Some people put 5 action and only one time scale and only one responsible person. That's kind of lazy. So if you have 5 actions, different action may require different time scale and different responsible person. So try to put some effort, identify one by one what is the time scale for this action. What about this one? Not just put everything in one paragraph. No other questions? Oh, handwriting or Word, just PDF output is okay. Yes. If you do it handwritten, then take a picture of it or scan it and submit it in PDF. Where can we get ILO guidelines? Is it available in NEBOSH website? You need to go to ILO website. Just Google ILO. It will take you to ILO website. And then under that, you have a list of what you call recommendation and convention. So just type ILO, Google ILO, and it will take you to ILO website. It's not NEBOSH website. It's different. Maybe if someone can answer that question, if anyone, guys, can you please check quickly the ILO website and then share it in the chat box for those who don't know where to find the ILO. Okay, so handwritten, yes, you can do that. Make sure the handwriting is clear. Okay, Kim, not in Korean writing. Handwriting must be clear. You can do it handwritten, but make sure it's the assessor will be able to read it. Can I submit again the risk assessment that I submitted last September for December because due to mistake? Okay, yes, you can use that one. Just change the date, maybe make it somewhere around December. Just update the date, but you can use the same. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rostan, for putting the link for us. Where can we get the new format? You can download it in the NEBOSH website, the new form. Go to NEBOSH website, qualification, then go to IGC, and under resources, you will find the new documents. Okay, another link if those who can give us the link to NEBOSH website for those of us who would like to download the new forms. So assignment, guys, if anyone could you please put the link for the NEBOSH website? Okay, so there's a lot of link on ILO. Thank you guys. Okay, other question. Yes, Kim. The file is uh, the new form. Yeah, that's good point. Yes, for the one who asked, where can we get the new format? Yes, Jovi actually she sent the files on the chat box. So it's there. Thank you, Kim. But I forgot. So Jovi sent through the chat box all the documents, the updated documents already. So just download from the Zoom chat box.
And I also sent an email to Sir Donghan Kim.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Kim, for sending that again. Okay. No questions. Any other questions?
Saglit lang, saglit.
Guys, any other questions? No questions? Can I use risk assessment I did here before? Yeah, for if you are retaking this unit, you submitted and you did not pass, you can just use the old one. Just improve it, update it, improve. Maybe you failed because you missed some information. You don't have to do it from zero again. Just update it, improve it. So if you have a risk assessment you did before, just update. So yes. What else? And probably for those of you who are retakers, maybe you received also some feedback from NEBOSH regarding your risk assessment. So take those feedback into account and just update your old one. Are we going to have another webinar for IG1 February exam? I'll give that question to Mama J.
Yes, Sir Elmer, yes po, we will have another session for the webinar. As much as much as we want to give you more information through this kind of online webinar, yes, we will provide. Maybe if we will also, for example, receive the latest NEBOSH examiner's report, then we will still schedule another webinar. So any changes that we think that will help you to pass your NEBOSH examination, don't worry. We are here, guys, to assist you. And I'm still encouraging everyone to always contact Alice. Don't be shy. If you have any question, okay? But make sure to read first, huh? Maybe it's in the video already. You're not just watching and you just want Alice to read it for you. So please initiate to read first all the links, all the documents that we provided before asking any question. But still, if you want someone to talk, yeah, you can contact me maybe, or even Joby and Alice. So that's it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mama G. So, okay. So, Gaspar, risk assessment is made here in my job. You're working in a hospital. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. No problem. You can be working in a hospital. You can be working in workshop, offices. It's never about where is the area that you inspect. It could be an office. It could be everywhere. It's about what are the hazard and what are the controls. Okay, so for the result, 50 working days. So you need to count 50 working days. Working days does not include Saturdays and Sundays. So you need to count 50 working days after December. Is it
Mhm.
December 10?
No, Alice,
Yes.
I'll just
Mm-hmm.
explain more of that
Mm-hmm.
because the actual NEBOSH deadline, I mean submission from the training provider like Trainovate is on December 20 or 22. We just need to require you to submit it on December 10 for us to still have time to check. Okay, and of course, there are internal arrangement like uploading, double checking, conversion, and anything. So we need more time to do that. So that's why we are requiring everyone to submit it on December 10 up to 12 midnight. Okay, so you will receive more of your confirmation on December 11. Okay, so, Dong, Mr. Kim, did I answer your question? Okay, okay.
Yeah, I think we have enough time already. We had enough time to work on this GC2, so it shouldn't be a problem to submit December 10. You had enough time, guys. Okay, number of manpower doesn't matter, right? Because the job site I'm assessing is not really manpower intensive. It's okay. In the sample, we've seen 24 workers, so it could be 24, 100, 200, 10 workers. It's okay. It's not about, like I said, it's not about the size of the workplace. It's about the hazard and the controls.
Alice, I'll just add that the
Mhm.
result of this GC2 on December 10 will come out on March 4, or at least earlier or last week of February.
Okay, so March 4, guys. So another question in part 3, what is the difference of moral financial argument of all action section box to the justification action specific legal action section box? The first one is very general. The second one is very specific. The first one is general because when you say moral argument, because you will say something like the company needs to protect worker. That is something very general. Financial argument, because if we don't implement safety, there will be accidents, and accident will lead to this and that. That is very general. But when you say the justification action and the boxes, action one, action two, action three, these are more specific. Because, for example, if you mention something related to dust in the action, then in the legal requirement, you'll have to look at something related to that. And also in the likelihood and severity. So, what is the likelihood? What is the severity? This is different for each action. So, the difference is really that the first one is something general, the second one is more specific for each action. I hope that answers the question. Okay, so general, like there will be fines, there will be prosecution. These are something very general. But the specific would be under ILO recommendation or convention, employers are required to provide welfare facility. That's one legal requirement. And then on the second one, I will be talking about employers are required to, I don't know, provide machine guard. I'm just saying whatever comes into my mind. But you'll have to look at specific legal requirement in the ILO. So it could be a convention, it could be a recommendation or codes of practices. So for justification for action one, action two, action three, it's something specific. If you talk about Equipment. So the legal requirement should be something related to that. If you talk about chemical, legal requirement should be something related to that. Specific. Okay. Same thing for the likelihood and severity. So likelihood and severity, if they are exposed to dust, what could happen to them? They could develop cancer, for example. So, and then if we are talking about working at height, what will happen to them? They will fall from height. They could die. They could suffer from fracture, major injury. So it's really specific, depending on the action. So that's the difference between the two. Okay. Okay. If you have any question, just contact me anytime. I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. Just send your message and I'll answer once I can. So no specific time. Construction dust is a general term. What kind of dust? Wood dust, cement dust, asbestos dust? What dust? So construction dust, cement dust, bato, or wood dust? So make it specific. Why specific? Because the effect is different, right? Could be silica dust or wood dust. And we studied that in IG2 when we talk about different hazards. So as much as possible, instead of saying construction dust, mention what specific dust. Just to be sure, just to be on the safe side, be specific. Okay, so see, when you say construction dust, it could be also dust coming from excavation, which is different from cement dust. So yeah, specific. So when you say dust generated from ground excavation, now I have an idea. Ah, okay, that kind of dust. But when you just say construction dust, what comes into my mind is dust from demolition, for example. So specific. Anything else? No questions? Is it because it's clear or is it because it's not clear at all?
Okay, they're very quiet now.
Yes, very quiet. Maybe we shouldn't do webinars anymore. No one is asking questions anyway.
Okay, yeah, we have a question from, yeah.
Because
Yes,
they
sir,
are
go ahead.
muted.
Yes, Gaspar.
Okay, so
Going once, going twice. Oh, last chance. Okay. Okay, if you don't have question, please give us feedback. Is it because it's clear or you're still thinking about the question or you really have no idea what to ask? Give us some feedback at
Hello,
least.
Ma'am Alice.
Yes?
Kukulitin ko po si Ma'am March, don't worry.
Oh, you'll send the question to Mama G.
oh, please, not any technical question to me. But
Hello, Ma'am Alice.
I'll try to get an appointment with Alice. So, and yeah, you can always contact me for anything. Don't worry. Last question. Submit answer via email. What's that, Alice?
Is that the submission of the risk assessment? Kim, submit answer. Okay, Jovi, please send the email for the submission once again in the chat box. Thank you. Is there interview after open book exam? Yes, there is. That is the IG1 exam. There is an interview. We call it closing interview. And that's after the IG1 exam, not the IG2. Okay, thank you, Aijo. So yes, sample. You know, the NEBOSH never provided that sample before. If for those of you are familiar with the GC3 and so on, But this time they have a sample risk assessment. So you can actually have a reference. If you don't know what am I supposed to do, just look at the sample. But again, do not copy paste from it. That's a malpractice and you will fail. And there will be consequences. NEBOSH will do some investigation. If they found that there are malpractices, you may have consequences like not allowed to take NEBOSH exams, or the result will be void or something like that. So we just don't want to take that risk. Don't copy paste from that sample. Who will do the interview? Training provider usually assigns someone from the training provider who will do the interview, and then training provider will submit a report to NEBOSH. So Anton, interview is done by someone from the training provider or assigned by the training provider. There is no post exam interview for IGC2. No. Kim, there is no interview for IG2. Okay. I think there are no more questions. Okay, one more. Part 3, is it acceptable to write search for third-party license who are specialized in disposing waste, chemical, and byproduct? Why part 3? What is that? Is that an actions that you will prioritize? Is that one of the actions that you will prioritize? Please specify. So part 3, so this is one of the actions that you will prioritize. If that's the case, yes. What's important is then how we're going to justify it. How we're going to justify that this is an important, urgent action. This is why you selected it. So when you select your actions, make sure you select the 3 that you think are most important, most urgent. Then justify why. Why are they urgent? No question. Just want to add one thing very important under justification. So we said you justify the actions one by one. How do you do that? You use specific legal argument. That's one. You consider severity and likelihood. That's another one. And the third one is you consider how effective that controls or that action would be in reducing the risk. So this is sometimes forgotten. Under that, you must explain this action. How will this action reduce the risk? How will this action help you to control that specific hazard? But also, you need to provide a time scale. So something like, for this action, I am giving the company 1 month. And do not stop there. Explain why. 1 month, because we still need to look for a supplier, for example. So do not just stop at the time scale. Explain why. Why did you say 1 month? Why 1 day? Why 1 week? Explain why. So maybe it's because of finances, maybe looking for suppliers, maybe because you still need to arrange the schedule of the training and so on. And it's in the sample and it's in the form. So just make sure you read the sample, check the form, because in the new form, they kind of put it in sections so you won't miss anything. So it's really good. Okay, nothing else on my side. If there's no more questions, I think that's a yes. That's a no. No more questions. So I think Mama G, we can end.
The teacher. Ma'am, and
Okay, sorry about that. So, yeah, before we end this webinar, I would like to request everyone, if you have time, please, to give us review in our e-learning platform. This will help us actually to improve and of course give assurance also to our future students on how we are handling and taking care of you guys. So just a favor, please spare some time to do that review. So that's very simple. Just check the IGC. You will see the review system. And if you are receiving some, spam email. Apologize on that. We are working on that 24 hours. So it's just that they are very tricky. Okay, so that's all from me, guys. If you have any, don't have any question anymore, I think that's all. So Alice, thank you so much for today. Everyone, thank you so much for your time. And again, contact us for any concerns, clarification. I'll do my best to get get the attention of Alice so we can help you guys until such time that you will pass this NEBOSH IGC. So good luck, guys, and keep in touch. December 10, 12 midnight, the submission. That's it. Thank you,
Yes.
guys.
So please send me a message. Contact me through the e-learning.
Mhm.
If you're not on the e-learning Facebook, just get my name. It's the same name on the screen. So just send me a message. Okay. Just a message. Don't send me a risk assessment. That's not allowed. So thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
You
Let
can
us
now
know if
like
you have
Group
questions.
picture, ma'am.
a group
Picture?
picture, please, 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 group picture.
Can
Show us your
we,
camera. Wait. Para sa picture, handa akong magka-COVID. Tinanggalin.
Oh, there you go. Hi,
Okay.
Domingo. Hi, Mark.
Okay, count, Joey.
okay, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Guys, you can start leaving. To those who still have any question, you can stay. Or maybe you're shy kanina, then
Thank you, Ma'am Marge. Thank you, Ma'am
Thank
Alice.
you.
Thank you, Trainovate.
salamat.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Sir, yung referral nyo ha, baka may mga kasamahan pa kayo sa work.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. No problem. Lilipat na ako.
Oo.
Bye. So the
Yes,
best
ma'am.
agad
Bye-bye po.
kairi
Thank you po.
Pelumo.